Good morning, students. Today I am going to start third video lecture on Unit 10, Haloalkanes and Haloarenes. In the last class, I explained in the last part about the reaction of haloalkanes with metals. The alpha carbon in haloalkanes being electron deficient, haloalkanes exhibit electron transfer reactions with metals. Electropositive metals can transfer electron to the alpha carbon of haloalkanes, and this is the basis of preparation of organometallic reagents like Grignard reagent RMGX and alkyl lithium RLI. Today I am going to start with nature of Grignard reagent. The Grignard reagent is shown here RMGX, where R is having delta minus charge, magnesium is having delta plus, and X is having delta minus charge. Now there are some important points which can be drawn from this structure. The carbon magnesium bond is covalent but highly polar because it is a bond between an electronegative non-metal and a highly electropositive metal. The alkyl part R is highly basic, and therefore reaction involving use of Grignard reagent must be done in anhydrous or dry solvent and under inert atmosphere. Otherwise, the Grignard reagent would react with water present in moist solvent or moisture present in air, and the reaction produces hydrocarbon. It has already explained that Grignard reagent has to be prepared in dry solvent or anhydrous solvent. Dry solvent means it doesn't contain moisture, and it must be prepared under inert atmosphere like argon or nitrogen. Inert atmosphere also means that there must not be any moisture or oxygen in the atmosphere. If the solvent contains moisture, that means water, or the air contains water vapor, then the Grignard reagent is going to react with water, and the reaction produces hydrocarbon. To prevent this reaction, Grignard reagent has to be prepared in dry solvent and in inert atmosphere like nitrogen atmosphere or argon atmosphere, and all reactions involving use of Grignard reagent must be done in anhydrous solvent and in inert atmosphere. Now, this concept that Grignard reagent reacts with water to form hydrocarbon can be applied to know some other reactions. For example, this is isobutane. Reaction free radical halogenation, free radical bromination produces this 2-bromo 2-methyl propane. Then this is the Grignard reagent which can be obtained from this one, and the reaction of this Grignard reagent with water produces again the same hydrocarbon. And this bromo compound, that means 2-bromo 2-methyl propane, can also be obtained from 2-methyl propene or isobutane by hydrobromination reaction. That means we can convert 2-methyl propene to 2-methyl propane or isobutane through these reactions also. Now here are some new concepts like molecular symmetry, asymmetry, chirality, enantiomerism, optical activity, and stereochemical aspects of nucleophilic substitution reactions. So these concepts are important to know about the consequences of SN2, SN1 reactions in some compounds which are asymmetric or optically active. Therefore, let us start with molecular symmetry. Some very fundamental concepts of molecular symmetry. To start with, let us take the example of water molecule. So this is a water molecule. The two hydrogen atoms are given designations HA and HB. Now, water molecule is a planar molecule. This HAOHB, these three atoms lie in a plane, and through this plane, we can consider another plane that is perpendicular to the plane that contains HAOHB. Now, this imaginary plane divides the HAOHB angle into two equal halves. And if we consider a mirror plane through like this, then the reflection will produce HB on this side, HA on this side. Reflection will transform HA into HB, HB into HA like this. So that means in this way, if we can imagine any plane through a molecule which can divide the molecule into two equal halves, and if each half is a mirror image of the other, then the molecule is said to be a symmetric molecule. Similarly, we can consider an imaginary axis of rotation through this molecule. Now, if we rotate either clockwise or anti-clockwise, then HA will come over in the place of HB, HB will come over in the place of HA. If we rotate 180 degrees, then this is going to happen. Similarly, here is a square. So we can imagine an axis through this square. Now, if we rotate about this axis, then this portion will come on this side, this half will go on this side. Similarly, if we imagine another axis through this square and rotate like this or like this, then this right half will come to the left half and this left half will come to the right half. And each of these two axes divides the square into two equal halves, and each half is the mirror image of the other half. This way, the square is symmetric. So, in this way, water molecule is symmetric, a square is symmetric. So, thus, any molecule that has at least one imaginary plane of symmetry, a plane that divides the molecule into two equal halves, where each half is mirror image of the other half, or an imaginary axis of symmetry through the molecule. Rotation about which generates equivalent structures is said to be symmetric. Here in this water molecule, if you rotate about this imaginary axis by 180, the HB will come over in the place of HA, HA will come over in the place of HB, and we get this structure. So this is an equivalent structure of these. So this way, this molecule is symmetric with respect to this imaginary axis of rotation. So here an example of methane and derivatives of methane. So methane is a three-dimensional molecule. Here this bond and this bond, they are solid bonds and they are in the plane of paper, and this H is going backside because it is in a broken wedge, and this is a solid wedge. This hydrogen is towards the viewer or towards us. Now, this methane molecule is symmetric because we can imagine an axis of rotation through this CH bond that will go through this molecule like this. And if we rotate this molecule about this axis by 120 degree, then this hydrogen, and these three hydrogens will exchange their places, whereas this hydrogen will remain in the same place. That means this molecule is symmetric. Similarly, we can imagine plan of symmetry or imaginary plan through HCH, this hydrogen, this carbon, this hydrogen in this way, and uh, this way, methane molecule is also symmetric with respect to the imaginary plan of symmetry. Then if we consider a derivative of methane, if we substitute one hydrogen, let's say by fluorine, then this is also symmetric because then this is going to have a plan of symmetry, and that plan will go through this HCF bonds and will divide these hydrogens, this carbon, this H angle. That means this here will be a plan, and that plan will contain FCH bonds, and the plan is going to divide this HCH angle into two equal halves. So this molecule is also symmetric. Similarly, then if we substitute one more hydrogen, let's say by chlorine, then this is again symmetric because now the plan will also be in the plan will also be oriented in the same way as it is oriented here. The plan will be along the ClCF bond, and it will again divide this HCH angle into two equal halves. So this molecule is also symmetric. And next, if we substitute one more hydrogen, let's say by bromine, then we cannot have any planar symmetry here. Now there is no longer planar symmetry in this molecule. The plan which was present along these two bonds and which divides this angle is no longer here. Therefore, this molecule is asymmetric, whereas these three molecules are symmetric. This is asymmetric. There is no plan of symmetry. There is no imaginary axis of symmetry. And this explanation can be represented by using cubes as shown here. So these three black balls are hydrogens, and this is a carbon at the middle of the cube. Now we can imagine a plan of symmetry about these two hydrogen. A plan of symmetry will go through this and this hydrogen and will be along this axis, and will also along the carbon atom. But this plan is going to divide this portion where on this side one hydrogen, on the other side this hydrogen. Similarly, if we replace this hydrogen, let's say by fluorine, again the same thing will be here. The same plan of symmetry will be here. The plan of symmetry will be along this hydrogen, along this fluorine, will be along this bond, and through this carbon, and it will divide through this, where on one side one is hydrogen, on the other side this hydrogen. Now if we replace this hydrogen by, let's say, chlorine, the same plan of symmetry will be here again, which is going through chlorine, fluorine, and carbon will be along this bond, and on one side this hydrogen, On the underside is hydrogen. Now as we replace one more hydrogen, let's say by bromine, then that plan of symmetry is absent now, because on one side there is hydrogen, on the other side there is bromine. So this way, so on replacement of the three hydrogens by different atoms, the methane molecule becomes asymmetric. Methane, thus methane, CH4 and its derivatives, fluoromethane, chlorofluoromethane are symmetric, while uh, bromochlorofluoromethane is asymmetric as it does not have imaginary plan of symmetry or symmetry axis. Such a molecule where the central carbon is bonded to four different atoms or groups is called asymmetric molecule, and it is a chiral molecule. A carbon compound where carbon is bonded to four different groups is asymmetric molecule, and it is chiral molecule. So here are some examples of chiral molecule where this carbon is bonded to four different groups. One is methyl, one is hydroxy, one is bromine, and one is hydrogen. Because about this carbon there are four different atoms and groups. So this is an example of chiral molecule or asymmetric molecule. Similarly, this one is asymmetric molecule. Here one group is methyl, one group is ethyl, one group is hydroxy, one is hydrogen. So here one is methyl, one is bromomethyl, one is hydroxy, one is hydrogen. So here also this is chiral molecule because this carbon is bonded to four different atoms. One is chlorine, one is bromine, one is hydrogen, and the other is last one is deuterium. So this is also asymmetric molecule and chiral molecule. But look at look at these examples. So this is achiral or symmetric molecule because this carbon is not bonded to four different groups. One here, this is methyl, two groups are same. Hydroxy and hydrogen, although they are different, but two groups are same. So this is a symmetric molecule. Like CH2FCl, CH2FCl. This is CH2FCl is symmetric molecule, where two atoms are same, two atoms are different. So this is symmetric molecule. That way, this is symmetric molecule. Two groups are same, methyl, and two groups are different, hydroxy and hydrogen. Similarly, this is ethyl, this is ethyl. The two groups are same. One is hydroxy, one is hydrogen. So this is bromomethyl, this is bromomethyl. Two groups are same. One is chlorine, one is hydrogen. So that means structures 1 to 4 are asymmetric or chiral molecule and they're optically active, whereas structure 5 to 7 they are symmetric molecule. Symmetric or achiral and optically inactive molecule. Now let us learn what is optically active molecules. To know that, let us learn about plane polarized light. So this is a photon of ordinary light. A photon of an ordinary light has vibrations in all directions. In all imaginary planes. We can imagine a plane like this. We can imagine a plane like this. We can imagine a plane like this. That means we can have an infinite number of planes or vibration. Now when a photon of ordinary light passes through nickel prism. Then the nickel prism cuts off all vibrations, keeping only one vibration. The vibration will be in only a single plane now. The nickel prism will cut off, will remove all other planes of vibration. So now this photon becomes plane polarized, or light consisting of plane polarized photons is called plane polarized light. Now when this plane polarized light is passed through a solution that contains a chiral molecule or optically active molecule or asymmetric molecule, then what will happen? The chiral molecule present in the solution will rotate this plane of vibration. Will rotate this plane of vibration, and this, let's say, the plane of vibration was vertical like this. Now the plane of vibration is like this, like this. Now if we draw a normal, so this is the angle of rotation, theta. Angle of rotation is theta. So here the rotation has been done in clockwise direction. Clockwise direction. The rotation can also happen anti-clockwise, in anti-clockwise direction. That depends on the nature of the molecule, nature of the chiral molecule or optically active molecule. Now this way, molecules which rotate the plane of polarized light are called optically active molecules. Optically active molecules exist as a pair of non-superimposable object and mirror image. Now another important point about optically active molecules is optically active molecules exist as a pair of non-superimposable object and mirror image. Suppose we have this optically active molecule or chiral molecule or a symmetric molecule, and if we imagine a plane of symmetry or a mirror plane here, if we imagine a mirror plane here, then the image will look like this. Image will look like this. Here hydrogen is vertically on the top side. Hydrogen will remain vertically top side. So then this bromine was on the oriented this side. Bromine will be oriented this side. The fluorine was this side. Fluorine will come this side. Fluorine will be like this. It was like this. It will come like this in the image. The structure of A can be said to be inverted in the mirror image. Now in these two structures A and B, spatial arrangement of atoms bonded to carbon are different. Here because bromine was this side like this, now bromine is like this. Chlorine was like this, chlorine is like this, fluorine was like this, fluorine is like this. Now as they are mirror image of each other, configurations of C in A and B are opposite to each other. The configuration or structures about the carbon are opposite in A and B. So these two structures A and B are mirror image of each other and they are non-superimposable, like the two hand gloves, a pair of socks, a pair of sandals. Now these A and B structures are not superimposable. You cannot fit one structure over the other. That means suppose you bring this structure and try to make overlap here, hydrogen and carbon will fit, but the other three are not going to fit. So this is similar to the fact that you cannot fit two hand gloves. You cannot fit two hand gloves, you cannot match two hand gloves. Similarly, you cannot, and that is the reason why, let's say, a hand glove of left hand doesn't fit into the right hand, or a glove of right hand doesn't fit in the left hand. And it is similar to a pair of sandals. A pair of cannot sandal doesn't fit over each other because of non-superimposability of the two sandals. Now structures A and B are stereoisomers and they are called enantiomers. They are stereoisomers. First thing is they are isomers. They have the same molecular formula but different structures. That's why they have the same molecular formula. That's why they are isomers. Secondly, they have same bonding connectivity. In these two structures, carbon is bonded to same atoms. That's why bonding connectivity is same, but spatial arrangement of atoms are different because you can say the bromine is this side, higher bromine is this side. Similarly, in other fluorine and chlorine also. So spatial arrangement of atoms are different. That's why molecules, such molecules which have same molecular formula but different orientations of atoms and groups in space are called stereoisomers. So A and B are isomers, they are stereoisomers, they are mirror image of each other, they do not superimpose or they do not fit into each other, and such structures are called enantiomers. So stereoisomers which are mirror image of each other and which do not superimpose over each other, they are called enantiomers. A and B are enantiomers. Now, between the two enantiomers, if one rotates the plane of polarized light in the clockwise direction, the other is going to rotate in the anti-clockwise direction. The molecule which rotates the plane of polarized light in the clockwise direction is said to be dextrorotatory, and that which rotates the plane of polarized light to the left side or anti-clockwise, it is called levorotatory. It is dextrorotatory and it is levorotatory. Some important points about this discussion. Number one, solution of any of the two enantiomers, A or B, as a single enantiomer is optically active. Solution of a mixture of the two enantiomers in unequal amount is also optically active. So if we dissolve any of the two molecules, say A or B, in solvent, then the solution will be optically active. Or if we dissolve both of them but in unequal amount, then that solution will also be optically active. Number two, a solution or a mixture of two enantiomers in equimolar amount 1:1 ratio is optically inactive. Such a mixture is called ratio mixture. Suppose we dissolve stereoisomer or enantiomer A 1 mole, enantiomer B 1 mole in a solvent, then the resulting solution will be optically inactive. So such a mixture or a solution containing two enantiomers in equimolar proportion is called a racemic mixture. A racemic mixture is optically inactive, and such a racemic mixture which contains equimolar amount of the two enantiomers is optically inactive. The mixture does not rotate the plane of polarized light. Now, having known these concepts, molecular symmetry, asymmetric molecules, chirality, optically active molecules, enantiomers, now let us discuss about the stereochemical aspects of nucleophilic substitution reactions. What happens to the stereochemistry? What happens to the structure of the molecule when a SN2 reaction occurs, when SN1 reaction occurs? Let us know. SN2 reaction. We know that in SN2 reaction, the nucleophile attacks the electrophilic carbon from the backside of the leaving group. So leaving group is oriented in this side. So nucleophile will approach the alpha carbon from this direction, from the backside of the leaving group. So this is the backside attack. But because of this backside attack, what happens? The structure becomes inverted. Nucleophile is attached to carbon in this side. Leaving group was towards the right side. Now nucleophile becomes attached to alpha carbon towards the left side. Now this can be converted to this, like this. So bring this X to the left side to make X in the vertical position. So if we bring X to the vertical position, then R will be obviously like this. That means X and R3 will be in the plane of paper, and R1 is in the broken waste, R2 is in the solid waste. They will be like this. Similarly, if we convert this to this structure, the nucleophile will be towards the top side and R3 will be like this. Then these two are mirror image of each other, except that X and NU are different. So structures 1 and 2, 3 and 4 are a mirror image of each other, except X and NU. So if we compare 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, they are said to be inversion of each other. Let us look at SN1 reaction. So this is a tertiary halide. It undergoes dissociation to form a carbocation. Now, I already explained you that the carbocationic carbon is sp2 hybridized, and therefore the three groups attached to the carbocationic carbon lie in a plane, lie in the three corners of an equilateral triangle. Now, the nucleophile can attack the carbocationic carbon from the top side and from the bottom side. The attack from the top side is represented A. Attack from the bottom side is represented by B. Now, when nucleophile attacks from the top side A, nucleophile will be in the particle position. R1 is like this, R2, R3 will be like this. And when the nucleophile attacks from the bottom side, then this is the structure which we are going to get. So we see that we can get 1 and 2 structures, 1 and 2 structures, and 1 and 2 structures are mirror image of each other. 1 and 2 structures are mirror image of each other, but they do not superimpose over each other. And these two structures 1 and 2, they form in equal amount. Why? Because the attack by the nucleophile from the top side and attack by the nucleophile from the bottom side, they are equally probable. Since the two attacks are equally probable, therefore 1 and 2, they are formed in equal amount. So 1 and 2 are mirror images of each other. They do not superimpose over each other. Therefore, 1 and 2 are enantiomers. And since they form in equal amount, therefore, we can say that SN1 reaction produces a racemic mixture. If the starting material is already chiral, already asymmetric, here this molecule is already asymmetric. Carbon is bonded to 4 different groups. If we start with such an alkyl halide where carbon is bonded to 4 different groups, then the SN1 reaction on such alkyl halide is going to produce a racemic mixture. Thus, the conclusion is that SN2 reaction produces inversion of configuration. whereas SN1 reaction produces a racemic mixture. Next topic is reactions of haloarenes. Among them, number 1, nucleophilic substitution. Aryl halides are much less reactive towards nucleophilic substitution reaction than alkyl halides due to the following reasons. So we have learned about nucleophilic substitution reaction in alkyl halides, SN2 and SN1 reaction. Now we can imagine, we can discuss whether aryl halides also exhibit similar nucleophilic substitution reactions, the way it is observed with alkyl halides. Now one important point is that while alkyl halides exhibit nucleophilic substitution reactions, in aryl halides, nucleophilic substitution is difficult. The way it is observed in alkyl halides, it is very difficult in aryl halides. There are some reasons. The first reason is resonance effect. So this is the resonance Plasser effect shown in aryl halides. The chlorine is having 3 lone pairs. One lone pair can move inside the benzene ring, and this produces a double bond character in the ClC bond, ClC1 bond. That means that in aryl halides, the halogen carbon bond is having substantial double bond character. Whereas in alkyl halides, the C halogen bond is single bond, permanently single bond. Thus, the halogen carbon bond in aryl halides is very difficult to break because of double bond character. Whereas the halogen carbon bond in alkyl halide is easier to break because of single bond character. Number 2 point of difference is difference in hybridization of carbon. In aryl halides, the carbon to which halogen is attached is sp2 hybridized. In alkyl halides is sp3 hybridized. So, since this carbon is sp2 hybridized, so this CX bond is shorter, whereas since this carbon is sp3 hybridized, this CX bond is longer. Therefore, this CX bond is stronger as it is shorter, whereas this CX bond is weaker, relatively weaker. So this is the bond distance given. In the case of aryl halides, CX bond is 169 picometer. Here it is 177 picometer. Since this bond is shorter, this is longer. Since this bond is longer, this bond is weaker. Therefore, this bond is difficult to cleave, whereas this bond is easier to cleave. And this can be represented, the longer bond length in alkyl halides can be represented by this orbital overlap picture simple scheme. So this is sp3 hybridized orbital in the case of alkyl halides. This is sp2 hybridized orbital in the case of aryl halides. Since sp3 hybridized orbital is longer in size than sp2 hybridized orbital, therefore this bond length is longer, this bond length is shorter. Number 3, the reason for less reactivity of aryl halides in nucleophilic substitution reaction is instability of phenylcation. We know that in alkyl halides, some alkyl halides exhibit SN1 reaction. In SN1 reaction, carbocation intermediate is generated. So can we expect similar carbocation intermediate in the case of aryl halides? So in the case of aryl halides, similar carbocation intermediate, that is phenylcation, is much less stable than alkyl cation. Since this phenyl cation is much less stable, therefore we cannot expect similar SN1 type of reaction in the case of aryl halides. Number four reason for non-reactivity or less reactivity of aryl halides is backside attack in aryl halides is not possible, as the aromatic ring is electron rich, and when a nucleophile approaches an electron rich center, there is electronic repulsion. Therefore, aryl halides cannot undergo SN2 reaction. So, in the case of aryl halides, the aromatic ring contains double bonds, more number of double bonds. Therefore, it is electron rich, and when a nucleophile approaches the alpha carbon, the nucleophile has to approach an electron rich group. Therefore, there will be electronic repulsion when a nucleophile approaches the alpha carbon in the case of aryl halides. And because of this electronic repulsion, the aryl halides are less reactive for SN2 reaction. So because of these four reasons, it is very difficult for aryl halides to undergo similar nucleophilic substitution reaction. So here are some examples of less reactivity of aryl halides. Further, electron withdrawing groups in aryl halides increases reactivity, whereas electron donating groups in aryl halides decreases reactivity. Thus, aryl halides do not undergo nucleophilic substitution in a way the alkyl halides undergo nucleophilic substitution. Aryl halides undergo nucleophilic substitution under harsh condition through a different mechanism that involves formation of a carbanion intermediate, which is stabilized by resonance. The reactivity of aryl halides is increased by electron withdrawing groups present in the aromatic ring, and this is evident in these examples. Here it is chlorobenzene. If that is heated with sodium hydroxide at 623 Kelvin under 300 atmospheric pressure and followed by it is protonated, we get phenol. See, a high amount of temperature is required for the reaction, and very high pressure is also required. Now, when there is a nitro group, electron withdrawing group at the para position, the temperature required decreases enormously, 443 Kelvin, and in 1 atmospheric pressure. That means the nitro group increases the reactivity of the chlorobenzene. When 2 more nitro groups are here, then the temperature required is 368 Kelvin, temperature decreases enormously. And when there are 3 nitro groups, see, the reaction occurs on simply warming. And it doesn't even require sodium hydroxide also. If we simply warm this with water, then water is going to replace the chlorine molecule, chlorine. And this is the mechanism of nucleophilic substitution reaction. Hydroxy group, hydroxide ion attacks at the position of attachment of chlorine. Then this electron pair must move at this position. So if we draw the resonance structures, then this electron pair will move here to form a pi bond here. Obviously, this electron pair must move to this position. So this is the pair of electron. So this can be stabilized by resonance. Now, that means the carbon ion that is narrated is stabilized by resonance. Now, this can eliminate the chloride to form phenol derivative. Some important points which can be drawn from this discussion is: number one, reactivity of aromatic nucleophilic substitution reaction is enhanced by electron withdrawing groups and decreased by electron donating groups. So, electron withdrawing groups increases reactivity, which is very much which is evident in these examples. Now, conversely, if electron donating groups are present, then they will decrease reactivity. Number two, reactivity is enhanced more when electron withdrawing group is present at ortho or para or at both ortho and para positions, as negative charge is distributed more at ortho and para positions than at meta position. Now, when electron withdraw, we know that electron withdrawing groups present in aromatic ring increases reactivity of nucleophilic substitution reaction. And it has been observed that when that electron withdrawing group is present at ortho or at para or at both ortho and para position, then reactivity of nucleophilic substitution reaction increases enormously. So this can be explained by looking at the schemes. Nitro group is at ortho position. So when the hydroxide attacks here, the electron pair of this pi bond moves to this position where to which the nitro group is attached. So this is the negative charge. Because since the nitro group is attached to this position, where the negative charge is there, this nitro group being electron withdrawing group stabilizes this negative charge. But when hydroxy group, when the nitro group is at meta position and the hydroxy group attacks here, see, the negative charge does not move to this position. Instead, negative charge moves to ortho and para positions. Negative charge does not move to this position, that is meta position. Therefore, nitro group has little effect in stabilizing the negative charge. The effect of nitro group is more when it is attached at ortho or at para position. Similarly, it can be shown that when nitro group is at para position and hydroxide attacks here, the negative charge will also move here. And the nitro group, if it is present para position, it will stabilize the negative charge. The second reaction of aromatic halides is electrophilic substitution reaction. Halogens have lone pair of electron. Therefore, there can be resonance involving the lone pair of halogens. And when there is Plasar effect, the negative charge, the electron pair that is coming from halogen moves to ortho and para positions. Ortho position, here is para position, here is again ortho position. That means electron density increases more at ortho and para positions. However, electron density is not increased at meta position. Therefore, in aromatic halogen compounds, where there is electrophilic substitution reaction, whenever there is electrophilic substitution reaction, the electrophile will attack at ortho and para positions. since electron density is more at ortho and para positions. Reactivity of halogens is less than that of benzene, no substituent, which suggests that the halogen by its electronegativity effect decreases the reactivity. So halogens being electronegative, it tends to withdraw the electron density from the benzene ring, and because of minus I effect of halogen, reactivity of the aromatic ring for electrophilic substitution is reduced compared to benzene, where there is no substituent. And this can also be explained by looking at this screen. Here E plus is electrophile, it attacks at ortho position, and you see there is positive charge at this position, because these two pi electrons will move and it will form a sigma bond between this carbon and this E electrophile. So therefore this position will become positively charged, and this positive charge is further destabilized by chlorine by its minus I effect. Similarly, when electrophile attacks at para position, the positive charge that is moving to this position is destabilized by minus I effect of chlorine. Third reaction of aromatic halogen compounds is Wurtz-Fittig reaction. A mixture of an alkyl halide and an aryl halide when treated with sodium in dry ether gives alkyl aryl ether. So this is aryl halide, this alkyl halide that is treated with sodium in dry ether, it forms this alkylated aromatic compound. Here is a specific example. Suppose this chlorobenzene. Suppose it's chlorobenzene, and we are taking 2-methyl propane. Then Wurtz-Fittig reaction will give this tertiary butyl benzene. The last reaction of aryl halides is Fittig reaction. Like alkyl halides in Wurtz reaction, aryl halides also when heated with sodium in dry ether gives aromatic hydrocarbon, where two aromatic rings are joined by a single bond. So here is an example. Suppose the aromatic halogen compound, and that is heated with sodium in dry ether gives biphenyl. So here are some answers to in-text questions present in page number 316. So these are the solutions here. So you go through these solutions. If you do not understand, you can send me a message in WhatsApp. The last portion of this unit is polyhalogen compounds. Applications of some polyhalogen compounds. One such compound is chloroform CHCl3. Its major use is in production of a group of refrigerants called freon. Mostly it is used for synthesis of chlorodifluoromethane CHClF2, which is an important chlorofluorocarbon CFC, and it is used as refrigerant. Chloroform is slowly oxidized by air in presence of light to oxygen, extremely poisonous gas. So when chloroform is stored in a bottle that is not able to prevent light falling into the chloroform. That means if the chloroform is stored in a bottle where light can pass into, then chloroform will be oxidized to oxygen gas. This is the reason why chloroform is stored in a dark brown bottle. Now, what are freons? Freons are compounds of methane and ethane, and all these chlorofluorocarbons of methane and ethane are collectively known as freons. They are extremely stable, unreactive, non-toxic, non-corrosive, and easily liquefiable gases. One example of freon is freon 12, dichloro-difluoromethane, and it is one of the most common freons in industrial use. It is manufactured from carbon tetrachloride by Schwarz reaction. Dichloro-difluoromethane, freon 12, is prepared by Schwarz reaction from carbon tetrachloride. Chlorofluorocarbons CFCs deplete ozone layer and atmospheric layer, which protects us from harmful ultraviolet radiation present in sunlight. So we have a layer of ozone gas in the atmosphere of our Earth, and when we heavily use chlorofluorocarbons through air conditioners, then what happens? These chlorofluorocarbons, they escape into the atmosphere, go into the ozone layer, and carry out some chemical reactions with the ozone layer. And those reactions deplete the ozone layer. So this is all about my video lecture, part 3 of this unit. In the last portion of this unit, which I have kept as part 4 of the video lecture, I have given the solutions of all the questions present in the exercise. Thank you all.